Richardson was the size of Merkel in those early years. And then all of a sudden, in the 50s, they put in Central, and TI come along, and everything just took off.
Richardson was growing at such a pace at that time that they couldn't keep up with what they needed in a classroom. So the fact that we actually had a classroom available in the drafting room was something else, because you could end up in the end of a hallway. J.J. Pierce, of course, was the superintendent, and he had a vision. They got him to come in there from a little old school outside of Richardson, and he was there for years. But he had a vision, and what he would do, he'd hire outstanding administrators like A.M. Anderson, and then A.M. Anderson would hire outstanding people. In the fall of '60, and Quita Noble, she can make sure I've got the dates right. She and I were assigned to go to Lake Highlands to student teach. And I was assigned to be with Bill Georges, the head coach. And he failed to tell anybody I was coming. And so I was in the restroom there, I'd been there about three days, and I was in there and I had this little old bottle, and I was putting it in my mouth, and Mr. Anderson, the principal, came in. He kind of looked at me and laughed real quick, and so he went to George and says, "What's the deal about this Russell guy? I saw him in there taking a swig." He broke down laughing. He said, "Yeah, Mr. Anderson, his jaw's broke in 3 different places. It's wired up. He's got a tooth out, thank goodness, because he can wash his mouth out with this stuff he has to use every day. And what he does, he drinks soup and he drinks milkshakes." So Mr. Anderson, he has one of his favorite stories about the first time he ever saw me. I was taking a swig in the restroom. See, we only had, we taught there, we had 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, and so they were needing to add instructors. We were a faculty of young, single people for the most part. We had Mr. Anderson as the patriarch. We had Mary Marler, who was the matriarch. They were mom and dad of the whole crew.
When he said, "You be at a faculty meeting," you were there. When he said, "You be on time," you were there. You pretty much did what Mr. Anderson said to do. He was, I would say, extremely well respected.
Right away when I came to Lake Highlands as a teacher, it became clear what a special place it was. My husband was teaching in Dallas, and if I came home with a story, "Jack, we had a fight today," he just laughed, because they had one every period, you know, so it was just a great place, the students and the teachers. And the camaraderie that we had, is particularly in the beginning, when it was a small faculty, was really special. A lot of that was the result of Bill Georges, whom Jackie Russell just spoke about, because the relationship between the teachers and the coaches was really unusual, I think. I didn't realize it at the time, because that was the only place I had worked, but we did things together. I remember at one point we had an after-school volleyball game among the faculty, and Bill Georges was involved in that. You would never see this happen, I don't think, today, but it was really special.
I didn't know at the time, but probably it was the most special time ever in my life, because it was a brand new beginning and a brand new school, brand new people that I loved and respected already and admired. And so the small school and the camaraderie among the faculty and a lot of fun with the coaches was just so exciting for me.
Just about any occasion could result in a party, and I think today the coaches probably have parties, but I don't think they invite a lot of the faculty to come. So it was a close-knit group.
I can't put on film what what all went on, but it was really neat. It was really neat. I guess the thing I can share is that after PTA meetings, we'd all go to PTA meetings because Mr. Anderson, he didn't tell us, but you know, he's check and roll because he expected all the teachers to be there. Well, we wanted to go there because afterwards we'd go somewhere and visit.
The faculty always did things together, especially after PTA meetings that we all had to attend at Mr. Anderson's request. And then he got to the point where he said, I need a third of you at each faculty meeting. And we continued to go, and he couldn't figure out why. But it was because we were going to have a party afterwards. So there was a lot of camaraderie.
It was a special group of people. We as faculty, as has been mentioned, we partied together. I remember one weekend we had a party, which was a road trip. I've never heard of another school faculty doing that. But as I said, we were just a bunch of single kids who liked to have a good time. Mr. Anderson used to say that he could always tell who his young teachers were and who his old teachers were, because on Friday, his young teachers were raring to go, and his old teachers were tired. On Monday, it was just the reverse. But we did have a good time, and we enjoyed each other. And I have to say, that was 55 years ago, but it's true to this day.
How blessed that the parents and the teachers and the students got to be at Lake Highlands in those early years. They're just really, and nearly every Lake Highlands person you talk to, they'll say that was special and it's really neat.
In addition to having talented athletes, they had strong parent support. The parents in the Lake Highlands community were wonderful parents, and they supported the teachers and coaches there.
It was absolutely unbelievable. Even as I was there as a student teacher, the parents sort of took the faculty, and I was the first student teacher in Lake Highlands, and so that may have had something to do with it too. But I mean, it was sort of like, they don't know what they're doing and we need to protect them, you know.
We had so many good things happening at Lake Highlands all the time, you know, students winning major scholarships or being a National Merit finalist, the athletic success, the success with the fine arts, all those things. I think my friends would often feel a little jealous when they heard about all these good things at Lake Highlands.
People really thought they would have done anything they could to be a coach at Lake Highlands, because anyone that stepped back and see what was going on, we had 4 grades in '61. We kept adding a grade, and we kept moving up. We kind of played outlaw ball, I guess what you'd say, the first year, and then we got into 2A, the Duncanville district. And they only had 1 school at that time. Played 2A for a couple of years, and went to 3A a couple of years, and went 4A a couple of years, and then before I left, we were in 5A. The first year that I was there, Bill had already been there. Bob McMillan was the coach there, and John Naylor. The boys didn't realize at that time, but they'd been coached by the 3 outstanding coaches in the history of the state. Like I mentioned before, you know, Dr. Pierce is really good to hiring some people, and I know Mr. Anderson probably had a hand in that. Bill Georges was assistant coach at Terrell prior to coming over to being head coach at Lake Highlands. They won state probably a year before he came at Terrell. Bill played at the University of Texas. You know, he was an All-American before, you know, they really had All-Americans. He played on one end, and really the guy that was named to the All-American squad was on the other end. And so people kept running toward Bill because they wanted to get away from this other guy. Of course, Bill never talked about what he did in college, how good he was, whatever. We had to pick that up from John Naylor,
was one of the coaches in those early years. He was at Texas when Bill was there. Well, the fact is, they both graduated from the same high school, Arlington Heights, over in Fort Worth. So I guess he kind of went from Arlington Heights to the University of Texas, into the Armed Forces, into Army. He played some ball there. Then he came out of coaching. I know he coached at Terrell the year they won state. Then he was hired to be the head coach at Lake Highlands. Bill probably saw the writing on the wall how great Lake Highlands was going to be. He probably realized what a job this is, and what an opportunity.
Bill Georges was really more of a personal friend of mine. I didn't know him that much as a football coach either, but he became a really close friend. He was Jerry's mentor and his role model, and he just took Jerry by the hand and guided him.
I went a lot of places. I got in a lot of doors and a lot of parties because of Bill, because I was with Bill. Yeah, everybody would like to be around Bill Georges, and so I just kind of got in his right-hand pocket and just stayed there all the time. And so wherever he went, I was able to go. Lake Highlands will never have an athletic director like Bill. Of course, again, I'm talking about my best friend, but it's true because he wanted all sports, men, women, all sports to have success. And you can't say that about all the athletic directors nowadays. You read things and see things that, well, Coach Georges wouldn't have done it that way. They wouldn't have had that problem because of him.
Bob went to Lake Highlands after having coached at Colorado City. We usually say Colorado, but out there they call it Colorado. He coached at Colorado City, and after he had gone to Baylor and then on to Baylor Law School, his dad became ill and he needed to go home and help his mother. While he was there, he needed a job. So he went to work at Colorado City, commuting to that little town west of Sweetwater, which is where he was from, every day, and then returning in the evening to be with his mother and dad. So that's where he started out, and then received a call, I think from Bill Georges, who was already at Lake Highlands, and asked him if he would like to have the assistant coach's job there. So Bob thought, well, Dad was well enough that he could leave, so he did. And that's when he went to Lake Highlands. And he and Bill were head coach and assistant coach, and they were a really good team. I think he thought it was an adventure and would be lots of fun with it being a new school and leaving college ball and then coaching at a small town. I think he thought it would be a lot of fun to come to Dallas and coach a young team, and he could grow as the team grew. So I think it was a very exciting time for him in his career.
He did his student teaching at Lake Highlands, probably because he had an aunt and uncle who lived on Abrams Road in Richardson, and he was at North Texas, so he requested a Richardson school district. And either he was lucky or Lake Highlands was lucky that he got to be a student teacher there. And once he was there, he endeared himself to Mr. Anderson and Bill Georges, and they didn't want to let him go, so he was hired to teach. And he was an assistant football coach, and he was the first head varsity baseball coach at Lake Highlands. Probably had more impact on students as a baseball coach than he did as a football coach, even though they knew that his first love was football. Because I had, when he died, I had letters from several of his baseball players. And even quite a few, at least 10, came to his visitation and told our son stories about him.
Class of '64, when they were juniors in the fall of '62. I believe that's right. The cross-country team won state. The next year in '63, and that was in 2A, and then we moved up to 3A in '63, the senior year of the first class, won state again in 3A. So we had 2A and 3A back to back. Even though we were moving up a class every year, we went to state every year. The only coach that at that time had won 3 state championships in cross country in 3 different classes. Had an athlete at state meet every year. There's not any secret to getting outstanding teams. You got to have outstanding people, students that's got some ability, but people want to be on a team with somebody they like, that they respect. And so like Bill Bryan and the other cross country guys, they kind of drew these guys in. People didn't even know they could run a distance. They did because they liked to be with the other guys. If you've ever seen Chariots of Fire, it's really, when I watched that movie at the very beginning, that's what I think of these cross-country teams, 62 and '63. And then we also had a state championship team in '65 when we were 5A. And so all those students, as you watch the movie, Chariots of Fire, when I watch that, I see my boys. Because that's what they did. They just loved to run.
And I was co-captain of the track team for 3 years under the direction of Coach Jackie Russell. We were a small school, yet Coach Russell had us running against the 4A and 3A schools. So it was always thrilling to go up against people that were probably better than we were, but we were able to compete with them quite well. There are 2 experiences that I remember the most. The first one is at the end of the track season, or towards the end of the track season, when I was a sophomore, when I was a sophomore, I had never really played athletics before. At least I'd never made any teams that I had tried out for. And Coach Russell needed another person to run the 440. I didn't even know what the 440 was. So we went down to the Abilene relays, and I won. And not only did I win, I set a record that had been held for quite a few years. So I had no idea that I had any athletic abilities at all. I was just a fill-in. And from that point on, I really involved myself in track. And it was really Coach Russell that mentored me the whole way. I mean, he was incredible. And then the second experience that I remember, of course, is winning Lake Highlands' first state championship in cross country with Bill Bryan and Charles Starr and Gary Freeman and the other people that I ran with. And that was a thrill.
When I started over there, Lou Zasterpil started the same year. Now, he was 5 years older than me, and he had already coached at another place. But Lou and I would ride together there at the first year. Well, that's not true, the second year. But I never will forget that Lou was a head basketball coach, and one morning, probably in '62, we come in after a basketball game, and bless her heart, Doris Williamson, she wanted to say something nice to Lou, so she said, "Lou, how did the game go?" Lou said, "Well, we got second." She said, "Oh boy, oh boy." So we laughed about that, you know, in basketball, you either win or lose. And so, but Lou Zasterpil was a great coach. He great friend. He had to leave the year before they won the state. He got them all ready to win the state, and he was, the way I remember it was, he was told, "You need to take this principal's job or forget it." And he took after, you know, much
the deal. He finally took the principal's job. Well, then Bob Stemps came in. Well, he was already there as a B team coach. Bob Stemps was. And then he was the head coach the next year, and they won the state. And so that was, Lou never got over that. I can tell you that he never did get over it. He went, fact is, he got out of being administration after that and went into coaching again south of here.
I think the most exciting thing was when Bob and Bill Georges were trying to find new teams for the little Lake Highlands athletes, or the young Lake Highlands athletes, to play. So they would invite me to go with them to do scouting trips. And we would go to Anna, and we would go to the little small towns surrounding and watch the teams play. And it was based upon those scouting trips that they determined who would be the teams that they would qualify to play with, and they would organize a schedule for the next year. Of course, the name of the game was to teach these young boys how to play football competitively, and which schools would they play with that would teach them and help them to grow into athletes as they saw the potential there. So it was fun to be in on the ground floor of a very special school and a very special time.
See, the very first year before I got there, when I was student teaching there, we just had this one wing, and then you had the cafeteria and the boiler room, and that's where they dressed. They had cardboard boxes that they'd have their clothes and stuff, and that's how they changed. They'd go home stinking.
The boiler room, now that was an experience. We had cardboard boxes for our pads and things like that didn't necessarily smell too much, and but we did. I mean, we would leave that boiler room. It was hot in there, and after a hard workout, we would get out, and I'm not sure why mom didn't talk to the coach at the time, but boy, we stank.
I've had more than one tell me at the class reunions over the years, said, "Coach, I was with you more than I was with my dad. I was with you more than I was my parents," because a lot of the guys would be in 2 or 3 sports. Like in myself, I had cross country, track, and then I was the offensive and defensive backfield coach. And so, you know, and the boys are just like I was. We never did really have a time. We really enjoyed practicing, and I know some of them will tell you some stories that they'll make up about how bad it was, but giving licks and so forth. But what I remember is it was a great time.
I think Bob's work ethic was so strong that he thought we just really going to have to be consistently tough on these boys because they're city boys and they need to be toughened up.
As far as the football teams, the only thing I ever heard them talk about in their early days was how they knew they had a lot of talented athletes, even if they weren't upperclassmen or anything. And I know that they worked them really hard because they knew they were talented and they wanted them to be the best that they could be. And the guys probably never saw the humor that Bill and Jerry both had because they were always so strict on them. But they were both pretty funny guys.
We didn't appreciate it at the time. All we knew is that those were really, really hard coaches, and we had to really work hard. But we did enjoy it, and we did respect them very much as father figures in our lives. Didn't know they were only 6 years older than me, but it was quite a father, or in my case, I was an only child. And I looked at him more as a big brother, particularly Coach McMillan. He had very strong arms, very furry arms, as I recall, and he was always in your face like a big brother. And you did what you needed to do to make your big brother proud, to make your dad proud, and particularly to make your coach proud.
Bob particularly was pretty gruff sometimes, and he could really be loud, and he would, as the kids said, he would just really holler and rough them up to get them tough enough to be the kind of athletes that I think he and Bill envisioned them to be.
Discipline, students, boys and girls, they in athletics they get discipline that some don't do at home. Many a parent over the years would want the coach to talk to their kid, and this is what I would like for you to change in this person that they've been living with for 13, 14, 15 years.
And Bill, if you ever had trouble with an athlete, all you need to do tell him, and he would take care of it for you. And as a first-year teacher, it was very challenging for me. I walk in a class and have 36, and the majority of them are football players. And I'm like, oh no. So when I had a little difficulty with them, I just went to Bill and said, you know what, they're really giving me a hard time. And I didn't have any trouble after that.
I think it teaches you discipline. I think it teaches you respect. I think it teaches you motivation, discipline in your life. It's not just in sports, but in all aspects of your life, and respect for others, and the golden rule, do unto others as you would want them to do to you, and motivation, giving it your best, trying your hardest at whatever the task may be, whether it was your studies, athletics, your work, your marriage, your whatever, raising kids.
The main thing that I learned, and that Coach Russell really emphasized and taught us, was not just to win gracefully, but to lose gracefully. To, when you lost, to walk off the track with your head up, and then go back to focusing on what you have to do better the next time. And he was never critical about that. And so I learned perseverance, focus. I learned that failure is not the end of the world, that you can always keep your head up and walk back off the track, work hard, and then step back on the track again and try again. And that's been the biggest lesson for me, is the importance of being elegant through that process of winning and failing.
I think it's important that a person loses, and then they know how to bounce back from it. And I think that that's where the coach comes into play. It's anybody can be a big talker when they win. It's what you say when you lose. How are we going to recover from that? And because we played Plano first all those years, we had to do that every year. we had to. Okay, this is only one game, man. We lost this first game, but we played great. Now let's go to the second game.
The most important thing I learned from football, and it's what happens with pretty much everybody on the line and half of the backfield, is in football you get knocked down, you pick yourself up, you go forward, you get knocked down again, whether you're blocking, whether you're tackling, no matter what you're doing. And these are hard knocks. These aren't just falls, but these you get hit pretty hard and you pick yourself up and you go forward. And that's been very beneficial later on in life, because you just got to keep going forward when you get those hard knocks.
Well, I think this class of '64, they would remember that the one loss, the two losses they had their senior year. We never could beat Plano in those early years. We had them beat. I mean, we was going to beat them in this one year, and everybody was just trying. His defense was just destroying their offense, and so all of a sudden, there at the end of the game, they get this kid, and they instead of tackling him, putting him on the ground, they throw him. He goes that way, and we're all over here, and he goes and scores, and they beat us 6-0. It is what I remember. Well, that was one game. Well, the next game we play Rockwall, and we beat them. I think about 27-20. And then we end up playing Rockwall then in by district.
This was the Saturday after President Kennedy got killed here in Dallas on Friday. Anyway, what people didn't realize is that their best player, Jackie Anderson, only played a half of the first game, which we won. Well, they beat us 40-0. The problem we made is we kicked the ball off to Jackie Anderson, and he scored. We'd punt, and he would score. Well, I'll show you how much, and I don't want to praise Jackie Anderson too much, but it ties in with Kevin Arms. Kevin and Jackie Anderson ran regional this far apart. Jackie he got ahead of Kevin, and Kevin couldn't beat him in 100 and 200. Both went to state. That's the way they finished at state. Jackie won state, Kevin was second. So he was a fast son of a gun, you know, besides a good football player. But we had some, of course, the players will tell you, well, we had the people hurt, you know, and they didn't, those country people at Rockwall, they didn't really, they didn't understand about the president getting killed. It didn't matter to them as much as it did us city folks. And now, that at some point in your life, you have to just say, hey, they beat us. That game, they beat us. You know, when it's 40-0, you just need to say, hey, we got beat, let's go on.
The 1963 football team, we won district and lost in by-district right after President Kennedy was assassinated at Rockwall. They went on to win state, and we beat them in the second game of the season, but lost to them in by-district.
But we had a really unique event, and that was on November 22nd, 1963. We were going to be playing for the by-district championship. We had already won district, and on that Friday night, we were geared up to play that night, and that afternoon, or that noon time, President John F. Kennedy was in Dallas, and he got assassinated, and we found out about it about 12:30 over the school loudspeaker, and like everybody in the city and the nation, we were in shock. But we had a team meeting 2 hours later that Coach Georges held for us to, one, announce that the game had been postponed 24 hours. But during this meeting, Coach Georges had the presence to try to calm everybody down and say that this is a strong country, that we will survive, that we're in a shock right now, but we are going to go on. This is a strong country, and you know, keep going. And that was something that I thought was incredible for a coach to, 2 hours after the assassination, to actually be able to relate to his young athletes.
A few of us, 5 or 6 of us, went both ways, and that was the thing that kind of did at the time, but doesn't exist anymore.
We always felt like that your best chance to win in those early years, we didn't have that many to start with, and so you needed your best players, like Roy Jean. He started at quarterback. He played safety for me there. Kevin was offense, halfback, defensive halfback, and you just could go right on down the line. And so really to have the best chance of winning, not that we stress winning all the time, but it sure beats losing, we needed the best players on the field.
1963 football moment, and I believe our first district game against Duncanville, and I think they had mopped up on us either the year before or year before that, and I had designed an opening play in study hall when I was supposed to be studying, and showed it to Coach Georges, and he liked it, and so we practiced it, and the opening play was a fake sweep, because a lot of the games we started and used pitch sweep to Kenny Woods, going around right in with Andy Anderson and Jim Frank and the rest of the team, the guards pulling Rick Campbell and Joe Holmes to block a right sweep. And so thinking that Duncanville would be looking for that, designed a play where I'd hand off to Kenny and then he would throw back across the field to me, going the opposite direction. And so the first play of the game, that's what we did. And he threw me a perfect pass, and I was able to catch it on the run. And Bill Webb, out of nowhere, the defensive back for Duncanville, had turned and was angling toward me, and Bill Webb took him out, and classic block, and as I remember, they had to bring the ambulance out on the field to take the defensive back from Duncanville off the field, and they had to stop the game. And we won, I believe, 56-8, and that was our first district game, and we didn't lose any games in district that year, and so that was pretty special.
Persons in sports, in athletics, that it's one of those few times that they are able to be with a team. They feel part of a team. It doesn't matter if they're like Kenny Speaks, Tom Sawyer. They were our managers in those early years, but they were as important as anyone else, and Bill made them feel important as anyone else. And so everybody was part of the team, and so you don't get that just in the math class.
Not being the most talented or the fastest or the biggest. They had to find something for me to do because, by golly, I was going to play. And Coach Georges and Coach McMillan kind of got together and said, we got to find a place for more. Let's see, do you think it might be possible for you to do one thing and not let somebody get outside of you? Don't let that runner get outside. I think I could do that, Coach. And so they let me go in and do that, and I got to play defense from then on. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think that's the first time that it dawned on me, which is, I think, Gruden, I guess, the credit for first saying, or at least he's quoted to say, don't let what you can't do stand in the way of what you can. And that's what I learned in football at Lake Highlands High School.
I really remember the camaraderie of that team and those guys, and it was a fun time to play and taught us a lot about life. Our coaching staff, I think, we thought at the time, and looking back on it, still do, probably more so today. They were outstanding and taught us a lot. Were tough on us, but that's what we needed, and we were all proud to play that game.
We just had some great athletes, besides outstanding students. You know, the student athletes is what they were, and it was pretty simple to coach that group. And of course, I'm feeding off, of course, the mentor, you know, Bill Georges and Bo McMillan and John Naylor, and then later Tommy Wade and Jerry Miller and Jerry Green, Sam Austin, and you know, you just go on and on. That these are all just outstanding people, and it's pretty simple.
And it was a move up in the world when Coach Georges, Coach Russell, Coach McMillan were there. It was a wonderful time. They were incredible mentors, and they were incredible men.
I really believe this. If a lot of the students that was in the class of 64, 65, 66, if they'd been in any other school and did not work their way up in the early years being coached by these head coaches, they wouldn't have been as good. They wouldn't have developed as much as they did.
Of course, as you look back, you realize how great a time you had and how special it all was. I knew we were called baby boomers, but I didn't know what that particularly meant. And I didn't know why it was significant. But I realize now, in listening to Coach Russell, the thought and the planning that went into this by J.J. Pierce to build all those facilities to take care of us, and to get us out of the boiler room and actually give us hot showers, and to hire that quality, that talent.
Really a special group, and they were special to us, and taught us not only how to be good athletes, but how to be good men, and to try to live our lives correctly, the way that they would want us to be. So hopefully we've accomplished that goal.
Well, I'd like to say something about Coach Russell. I mean, I think we have to put his contributions in context. First of all, he was only 4 years older than we were. I mean, he just graduated from college himself. We were his first team at his first job, and I think that he didn't really realize how important he was to all of us that were on that team. And I just want him to know that his influence on me is one of the top that I've had by anybody. I mean, he was amazing to us. He was kind. He never criticized us. He was always there for us when we won and when we lost. And it was an incredible experience that I have tried to mimic and to try and be like him throughout my life.
I just loved to teach, and I think if you love what you're doing, I never had a job at Lake Highlands. I know Bill, if he was here, he would say the same.
I think I knew it was special, but I didn't know how special it would become. Because being there early on, seeing the athletic program at its infancy, and then seeing it grow, and then seeing what it became was unbelievable. And when Lake Highlands beat Plano, you know, that was the best you could be. So that, I didn't know that then, but knowing it now, I realize how wonderful it was to be a part of that time. And it still just tickles my heart to know that I was in, as I said, on the ground floor of something really wonderful and special, and to have the friendships that were born there still vital and active in my life today. Not only with this faculty, but with the students.
We still get together. Any one of us knows that we could call another one in the middle of the night and they'd be there. So it's something that's non-existent today, totally non-existent.
I still think about the guys, the teams, the coaches, and the guys I played with a lot. And I miss seeing them. I miss being with them. And a lot of them are gone, have passed away, both the coaches and the players. But that was truly a special time, and why we wanted to put this together was because it's the 50th anniversary of the '64 class, and if we didn't do it now, it wasn't going to get done. And I think anybody who listens to this, I think, will see what Lake Highlands was really about in the '60s, and it was a unique set of circumstances that all kind of came together at a moment in time and made a tremendous impression on all of us, whether it would be the student or the teacher or the administrator, and something that we want to pass on to other generations.
Bill being the principal of Lake Highlands Elementary when these kids started, and then my being their teacher their senior year, those groups of students through there, about 3 or 4 years of them, became extremely special to us. I would give anything if he could be here to celebrate all of this. Now, a few years back, they celebrated the 50th of Lake Highlands Elementary, and at the same time had secured a historical marker for it, and they asked me to come back to speak. This was after he was already gone. And I was literally blown out of my mind at the number of these people that showed up for that, because that had been so special to them. And that was, Lake Highlands was built around the schools, but there's a different feel to it, but it's still a very special place to live. It is a place that is committed to its history. It's a place that wants to learn from its history. And all of these people that have turned out and become such outstanding young people from one end of this country to the, well, all over the world, really, they still come back home, and that's home. They remember where their roots are.
It's just really a blessing. Why in the world would you end up in that position? Like I say, people would have paid big bucks to be in the position I was in, you know, and for things to fall into place, like Bill Bryan come in, and then all the other students come in. I got a call, I guess probably about '66 when Coach Frazier, my track coach at Tarleton, he was a track coach there for 40 years, legend. Anyway, I got a call from Tarleton about '66 and wondered if I'd consider applying for the track job at Tarleton. And so let me think about that. And so I got to thinking about all the people, what I had already experienced for 5 years. And there wasn't any way I could leave because I was already in love with Lake Highlands and all the people.
The only thing I regret about being here is that Bill and Jerry are not here to celebrate this occasion with them, because the smiles on their faces would tell them the story of what a special group they were.